Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed. The last few episodes, we have been understanding the nature of human conflict. What is the nature of the conflict that we face as human beings? Now, we've been seeing that it's the same conflict playing out within our soul individually, playing out within our city or society, and on a higher level is being played out within the cosmos. Now, that is a harder one for us to see because, well, are we there yet? Or do we have to address those first two stages of that conflict, resolve that conflict there before we can participate in a higher way within the cosmos? Nevertheless, we can imagine how the same conflict is playing out within the cosmos itself, which is important because what we've been reading is the purpose that we have individually and the meaning that we have in our individual lives also applies to our species. Humanity is worth saving because it has a role to play within a greater purpose or destiny within a greater whole of the cosmos. And there's an end. Saying there's a destiny or purpose means that there is an end goal. Isn't that interesting? And we've been wondering about that as we've been reading. Now, we've also defined what the Conservative Party is. It is important because the Conservative Party has been doing terrible, terrible, terrible things for a very long time, and that's all they do, really. But now, and of course, they are exposing their nature through the Epstein files and the fact that a group bound by human sickness defines their whole group, defines their club. But also what we've been learning is, hang on a second, isn't that the same as families? There is a kind of family sickness called the pathologos, and if you speak out against it, you face chastisement, excommunication, and sometimes even murder for challenging the way the family does things. And the way of being of every family bound by the pathologos and not following the logos, doing the things that we do here, is one of a kind of injustice, kind of insult against the self, and inflicting that way of being, that belief structure, on children as what it means to be a member within that group, because otherwise the family would have to reflect and learn something new and better. But that's the root of it, a fear of what would be involved in learning new understanding. That's the fear. Now, developing new understanding of this kind changes your state of mind and way of being. There is also a fear of other states of mind, different from what you've been used to. A fear of using your own mind. A fear of dropping all of your past programming and using your mind to think creatively for yourself, respond to the moment most appropriately. Manifesting as belief-based groups, conservatism, family pathologos, fearing other groups of people. Manifesting, of course, as the violence and the sadism inflicted, the cruelty, the inequality inflicted on others. Women, non-whites, non-billionaires, non-believers in their particular belief. So, a fear of understanding, a fear of mind, and ultimately a fear of freedom of oneself. Defines the Conservative Party, the Pathologos Party. Defines also capitalism. Equally, a system of inequality and hierarchy based on believing that giving all the wealth and all of the resources to a few billionaires somehow will be good. in opposition to any understanding. A 4-year-old could figure out that that's stupid, doesn't work, will never work, can't work. And those who oppose capitalism are targeted by the conservatives, by ICE, by Nazis, by fascists, etc. Religion, we have been reading and seeing for ourselves, is also defined in a similar way. In opposition, in conflict, fundamentally within oneself, to accept the limitations of the belief. Also functioning in opposition and fear of people who are different. Killing the Palestinians, killing the Jews, killing the Muslims, killing the non-believers, the heathens, the goyim, the moyals. There's always... moyals? That's something else. Something else that's bad. There's always a name used within a religion to vilify the non-believers. And as understanding is required to actually solve problems and benefit, believers can't do that, so they instead replace doing cruel, bad things for being able to do good things as a mark of knowing. So we see a kind of performative ignorance and cruelty in the Epstein class, in the billionaire class, in conservatism, in religion. Look at me, a good Jew, murdering this Palestinian child and celebrating it on Instagram. Look at me, a good billionaire, making sure my workers can't afford food and rent and suffering. Look at me, a good conservative, sending people with an accent to concentration camps. In the year 2026, can you believe it? No understanding, no benefit, no helping, performative cruelty as a way of being based on belief, a belief that is fundamentally tied to a fear of actual understanding, which is required to see universal principles, apply them universally to benefit what we are here to do, develop understanding. A fear of understanding, a fear of good states of mind, different states of mind, and a fear of being free. But if I thought for myself, then that would be terrible because I believe that I'm a bad person. Now, we've also seen that there is an image tied to certain states of mind and ways of being that the human conflict is about. What way of being wins? Empathy or cruelty? Love of understanding, philodainoia, or philodoxia, love of opinions? Modern academic approach to philosophy, the opposite. Belief or understanding? There's an image tied to that way of being that Socrates has been saying attracts and repels people. That fits in with what we've been learning about the pathologos, a fundamental image of ourself tied to a way of being, states of mind, resulting in certain functioning or activity through belief in opposition to your own benefit and understanding, resulting in a sort of conclusion as a being bound in ignorance, suffering, fate, repeating cycles of failure, a self-fulfilling prophecy. But unlike a tragic hero who recognizes at the end, too late, that it was his way of being that caused his tragic downfall, a pathetic hero doesn't even realize that. So that's the conclusion of the pathologos. Pathetic, zombie-like NPC stuck in a script, repeating self-fulfilling prophecy, confirming the false image of self that we are here to specifically address, according to our dialectics on learning and reincarnation. What Socrates has talked about earlier is that we're here specifically because we are still carrying and identifying with a image of ourself that prevents our further development. In other words, if our evolution through reincarnations is to higher dimensions of reality, which is also higher levels of self, as self is the one and first cause, then you can't simultaneously carry in mind, notice mind, not physical, the higher dimensions are characterized by mind, You can't carry in mind a different, false, limited view of yourself while at the same time being a higher idea of yourself. Therefore, our purpose is to surface our pathologos image of ourselves that we relearn in our reincarnations into a certain family. And instead of doing that, we spend our lives further entrenching ourselves in that very pathologos idea of the self that we are specifically born to address. So instead of removing our false limited states of mind, we fear our higher states of mind and viciously defend our ignorant, harmful states of mind. So, as we are seeing and will continue to see, the billionaire class will fight to defend their perceived privilege in their disgusting, psychopathic, hoarding way of being at the expense of all humanity, everyone's way of being, quality of life, and even the planet that we live on. Because, hey, they like having power over people and justifying their ignorance through their billions of dollars. The Epstein conservative right-wingers will do the same. Instead of doing their purpose, addressing their ignorance and harm, they will defend it. Religion is the same. As we wake up to the fact that, hey, religion isn't neutral, teaching a child that they are bad and evil and they must reject understanding and development to stay stuck in the same Scientology beliefs, Mormon beliefs, Muslim beliefs, etc., that they were forced into being, into accepting, is harmful, which is why those billionaires and conservatives try and appeal to those already indoctrinated into religious belief. Very, very easy to see for hundreds of thousands of religions except for one, your own. That's the catch-22. Human beings will defend their own ignorance, their own image of self, their own negative way of being, and their own harmful functioning, making them defending their own problems and sufferings in opposition to their own benefit. Notice the dialectic behind that thinking. Definition, image of self. Demonstration. How does it demonstrate itself? A state of mind, a way of being. How does that manifest in its functioning or division? How do you function in all other areas? Through interpretation and belief. Belief and interpretation to defend your conclusions that you're already carrying. And then conclusion is the fourth stage. Definition, demonstration, division, conclusion. How does it end? And as we said, you end stuck in your problems. In a loop, a self-fulfilling prophecy loop, which contains its own self-defense mechanism. Because its functioning division is always in opposition to learning. So therefore, the very thing you need to do, learning, your problem blocks you from. So a certain catch-22. Which is why philosophical midwifery and dream analysis is essential. You can't outthink your own problems caused by that very way of thinking. Einstein said that. So it must be true. Therefore, what we're learning here, the aspects of the dialectic in the new way of being, philodianoia, love of understanding, is necessary for all human beings. So this would be the good team, or the winning team, ideally, of the human conflict. And while everyone's individual pathologos and individual beliefs and opinions are different, everyone is the same, be they conservatives, be they the Joneses, the Andertons, the capitalists, or all the different religions, in that they all function the same way. A blind, ignorant, savage loyalty to their own sickness in opposition to their own development out of fear of the self. The freedom of self, free from your self-image, freedom of mind, free from the negative states of mind attached to the family belief, free from belief and interpretation, to participate in your own independent reasoning and understanding. And finally, number 4, conclusion, a freedom to reach your highest goals. That's the nature of human conflict. Now, we've seen that this is true for every human being, therefore, everyone is supposed to be going through this process. But instead of going through this process, becoming fellow philosophers in the new kind of philosophy, which is actually the ancient kind of philosophy, the perennial or the parent philosophy, notice that if there is only one philosophy, then philodoxia, modern philosophy, thinking that everything is just opinions, makes it a manyness. Many different opinions, but understanding is one. Anybody can understand how to ride a bike. Anyone can go to school and understand how to be a vet. Beliefs are not. They're always a manyness. So that's the nature of human conflict. And instead of addressing that, there are people who venerate their own ignorance instead of addressing it. It's not me who has the problem. We're actually going to make a political party to say, no, it's the right thing to do. Conservatism or the right wing. It's not my ignorance and oppression and violence towards others. No, it's the free market. I'll join a group of sociopathic billionaires in the Epstein class of people where we will justify our ignorance by binding together in sadism. We will collectively agree to be a part of a group that defends this harmful way of being we call capitalism and the existence of billionaires by binding together in this torture and abuse and murder of other human beings who are the most vulnerable. Reflecting capitalism as a whole. What else is capitalism other than the people who are already wealthy, have more wealth than they can ever spend in a million lifetimes, but instead of using it to benefit, they want to, or they gain their wealth through as well, exploiting the most vulnerable. Just as the Epstein class do ritualistically towards the most vulnerable people. Hey, stolen from poor families that they have impoverished. Vulnerable families suffering from war, the consequences of war that they themselves have perpetrated. So, hopefully, what's coming to light currently at the time of recording about the nature of the Epstein billionaire class will be sufficient for us to wake up and realize that we've got a job to do. Understand the nature of human conflict, and we've just done that. A fear of those 3 aspects of self. Freedom of self, imageless. Freedom of mind, pure intelligence. Freedom of functioning according to self and mind, understanding. Causing a blind loyalty to your image of self, harmful way of being, a functioning through not reasoning, but using argumentation to prove the beliefs you already carry, interpretation. Triad of self. Now you can make it even simpler and say, hang on a second, let's go from 3 to 2. 3, the triad of self. Because those 3 states of freedom are defined by the Logos. Our job, therefore, is to master the Logos, follow the Logos. It's understanding. And those 3 negative aspects of the self are defined by the Pathologos. So our job is twofold. To develop understanding, to follow master the Logos, to become a dialectician ourselves, and also use that understanding to free ourselves from our Pathologos. That's where we are. Isn't that interesting? Isn't this book a banger? The good thing about this is you don't have to believe this, you can understand it and verify it for yourself in your own soul's work to go through that journey yourself individually. Thus, the necessity for what we do here, true philosophy, its application to free yourself from your own injustice, midwifery, and to apply that same dialectic to your dreams to get guidance on how to do that. So that's where we are. Fun, fun, fun. Let's have a drop.
She's a moron. She's a bumped on the head individual, BHI.
Exactly.
I'm eating the testicles of this bull, and I'm eating it raw bull. This is balls.
Crazy.
Jesus Christ, Emma.
Making ice cream's a good spit on me.
It's sad, and I'm sad for you.
All right, let's jump into the reading. So, what's behind man's struggles is to flourish and survive is simply a struggle over what state of mind will flourish and what will not. There we go. So this is a kind of war for and against certain states of mind. The consequences play themselves within the family, within the city, so your own individual pathologos, the city. Hey, what happens if you stand up for the logos in your family? Are you targeted? Are you made an example of? Hey, what happens if you stand up for truth and justice within the city? Does ICE target you? Does the Epstein billionaire class murder you to make an example? And the cosmos. Therefore, let's hypothesize what could be happening within the cosmos. What happens if humanity doesn't address our injustice towards ourselves and each other through the development of our dialectic understanding? What will happen? Can we partake in a greater functioning within a greater cosmos? If we are ruled by the most sick people in groups defined by literal human sickness, pathologos? Or if we are that kind of a race, based on lies, manipulation, and ignorance, would that be a dangerous species to enter into the fold? Humanity would then try and seek their ways into positions of power within the cosmos to destroy the cosmos. Epstein was a Democrat. No, he wasn't. He was definitely a conservative. That's pretty obvious. I don't know why you would say he's a Democrat. Unless, of course, you yourself are loyal to one party. There is monsters in both parties. Yes and no. One party is defined by the sickness party, the pathologos. Only cruelty, only injustice. The Democrats are also unjust, but in a different kind of a way. They reject understanding. So while fourth hypothesis, using the hypotheses of Parmenides we've been understanding, is defined by belief. The progressives are supposed to progress along the logos. Learn understanding, demand understanding, and apply that understanding to understand the universal principles of justice, universal principles of reality, make sure they're being applied universally to universally benefit. But instead, they're compromising with the fascists because they reject understanding. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the people who characterize the nature of the establishment left, are getting their bag, baby. They're trying not to do anything. That would require courage and character they don't have because they reject understanding. You need to learn what virtue is. So we call them materialists or dualists. There is no truth, there is no understanding, everything is a matter of opinion, so let's just do nothing. The establishment left. Whereas the establishment right, the Epstein class, are bound by sick beliefs called the pathologos. And because beliefs can't do any good, they only do harm, and they take the infliction of doing harm as what it means to be a knower, playing out their family pathologos within the society. But in the same way, whether you are now of course, just because you call yourself a Democrat doesn't mean you're actually a Democrat. There are many Democrats who are actually conservatives, or wolves in sheep's clothing, we call them. In fact, the whole party is pretty much a wolf in sheep's clothing because they don't address progressivism. Progressivism means to progress along the logos. True philosophy that we're doing here. And you can't progress unless you're actually solving the cause of problems. They ain't solving problems because they perceive they benefit from the system that they have all this wealth and power from. That's the nature of all human conflicts. A perception of benefiting from the system and a fear of learning, understanding, changing your mind, freeing yourself in a way that allows you to progress. So played out within the family, within the city, and we can wonder about the cosmos itself. Now that's an important point because Epstein might say, oh, I'm a Democrat, while also playing both sides, while scamming everyone. But we label people on how they function, not what they decide that they are. I can call myself a dentist and start smashing people's face in with a hammer. It doesn't make me a dentist just because I decided I was one. Functioning is how we have to understand and label people. I did like Bernie, but there's no one on the left like Bernie. I mean, there's AOC, and then there are a few. Mamdani is getting there, and there are a few within the squad. But they can improve, and we have to. Well, again, they also have to become philosophers. They also have to learn what progressivism means. It's great that they are more rational and more empathetic. They are less bound by their pathologos ignorance, but that doesn't make them understanders. Got to get into the breeding that we're doing here. And hey, wanting to solve problems isn't the same of being free of problems yourself. You got to learn you got to learn how to do the dialectic too, understand what true progressivism means, following the logos, and you got to understand the dialectic to free yourself from your problems. Everyone has a problem. Necessarily, it's why we're here. It's what it means to be a human. To have to go through the learning of the logos, to seek the truth and understand the true paradigm of justice, and apply it equally to free yourself from your false image of justice. But we can learn that and demand it of people who seek office, just as we can all understand they do dialectic. No, they don't. For money and power. That's not dialectic. Dialectic is how to think, the structure of the logos. There are terms involved. We've been doing a lot of work on this channel. There are certain terms that you use that are non-physical, but define everything in reality. When you want to explore an idea, you want to look at it in terms of its whole, its parts. What is it the same as? How is it different? There's a bunch of pairs. These are terms. By the way, you've never seen whole and part in the physical world. You've only seen them as adjectives. In philosophy, your job is to understand them and directly experience them as nouns. It's a non-physical spiritual experience. Psychic experience of mind knowing itself. Our idea of justice, our idea of beauty. Again, we don't see them directly except in the experience of knowledge, which is only open to philosophers. But we all carry a false pathologos belief about beauty and justice from our family. So these terms are arranged in a certain structure. If you're exploring an idea, you probably want to talk about it. Where's a good one for the dialectic? If it exists. Hey, let's say you want to be a politician. You better understand what justice is so you can apply it in your job. You better give a definition itself in relation to itself. Definition. What is justice? Not how it functions, but what is it itself? If it actually exists, and by exists, we don't mean in the physical world, we mean eternally in a non-physical world, that's the cause of all of the physical principles and forces that change through time. It's unchanging, therefore not a matter of opinion. So you can't vote on it. It's just true or not. Just like you can't vote your way into being a dentist. You either demonstrate you know it, or you don't. You don't qualify. Definition. How does it function itself that you've just defined to others? Demonstration. If justice exists, how does it function to others? How does it function to a mind of a philosopher? How does it function to beauty? How does justice function towards truth? As a result of being affected by that functioning, how do you go on to affect other things? Hey, someone who's been affected by justice, how would they play out in politics? How would they play out within their family? How would they play out within their relationships? As a result of being affected by this, that's division, others to other others. And as a result of this kind of life or drama, is there a key idea that you can use to relate back to the subject itself? Conclusion. Having been affected by so what's justice? Let's give you an example. If justice exists eternally, not as a matter of opinion, but as a true principle that is understandable, governs our physical world, but can be experienced directly in the experience of mind knowing itself. So it's also, the dialectic is a kind of meditation, so it's also spirituality. What is it itself? Now, that's why we have to read, because we're not interested in opinions about justice. We need to be reading texts written by someone like Socrates who has mastered this already. Just as if you want to be a dentist, you can't just read Harry Potter, you have to read a book by someone who's already a dentist, someone who's mastered the logos. That's why we read on this channel. So using the text, how would you define justice? How, using the text, how does that justice affect someone like you as a philosopher? Having developed a relationship with justice, how do you then affect others in your life? Others being affected by you, how would they then be inspired or changed so they can relate back to justice itself? Notice, it's evolving. Every dialectic you do, you gain a better understanding. So you can give a better definition. And by the way, the dialectic has these 4 parts that you also have to apply. Well, what if it doesn't exist? What if it is just a matter of opinion or a matter of belief like the right-wing conservatives think? Or just a matter of opinion like the left-wing thinks? What kind of a universe would that be? That's the dialectic. But your description of how to do that is itself based by how you view the world. No, that's opinion. That's opinion. This isn't. Notice, none of these principles exist in the physical world. Can't be a matter of opinion. For example, have you ever seen Hole walking down the street? Hello, Hole. By the way, has everything you've ever seen been some kind of a hole? Everything that you've ever understood. You've understood what a chicken is? It's got feet. It's got a beak. It's got wings. You don't understand it unless you bring the parts into a whole. And you can understand, therefore, how this chicken is the same as ducks in that they're birds, but they're different because they're yellow. This isn't opinion. These are principles that universally apply to everything in understanding, like the Lego pieces of understanding, everything you've experienced, everything you've ever perceived is some kind of a whole, made up of some kind of parts. That's the same as something, in that it's a thing, and different in that it's the thing that you're looking for, and existence. Now, if you believe that there is no such thing as truth, which some people do, the establishment left, for example, then you can dismiss actual truth and understanding, including the truth that conservatives are monsters, capitalism is disgusting and harmful, religion is also child abuse. You can dismiss all that and say, well, that's just your opinion, bro. Let's just compromise with the right, bro. Let's just let the Nazis do some Nazi shit, bro. Who's to say what's right and wrong? Isn't it all just perspective? So if that is your your own particular false belief, you can see how there's a built-in self-defense mechanism. So when anyone comes along and has this kind of reflection for you, oh no, there's truth, or leads you through a dialectic, hey, by the way, if you were flying on a plane and there was someone sitting in first class who's had a few rums and got quite confident, and he says, I decide I'm a pilot, I want to fly the plane. And you hang on a second, don't you dare, we'll all crash and die. No, but isn't everything just a matter of opinion? So my opinion under this influence of rum, that I'm a pilot, is just as true as the pilot's opinion that he has actual understanding. Would you allow that to apply there? Notice, all I did was make the stakes immediate. So you can test your belief that everything is a matter of perspective. There is no truth or understanding. And if you were to reason through that, you'd probably say, I mean, it's difficult over stream, because I don't even know if you're still there. But I'm guessing you would say, well, no, I wouldn't let the drunk arsehole fly the plane because we'd all crash and die. Exactly. So what does it say about your idea that there is no truth and understanding, it's all just a matter of perspective or belief? Now, there's two processes involved in changing your mind. Number one, going through what we've just pointed out. What did I do? I demonstrated the structure of thinking itself with the dialectic. Pointed out it's also the paradigm for spirituality. And I, as a whole, and I broke down its individual parts as well. My board is a bit slow. So the things on the board right now are the parts. I defined them. There we go. They're written on the board. I gave a demonstration of what they are. I used that demonstration in specific examples with the chicken. And then hopefully, if you were following, from that we could make a conclusion. Well, ideally you make the conclusion. Therefore, these are the Lego pieces that are not opinion, but exist universally for understanding, experience, existence, chickens. Therefore, the idea that there is no truth or understanding that's objective, universal, graspable, and necessary for you, your purpose here is to learn how to think and understand and apply that to your most meaningful goals, to know the self and reality. Therefore, you can. Therefore, you can know truth. There is truth. And you can do it because you just did. Now, that's not going to be enough. Because the position that everything is just a matter of opinion and perspective, including what I just said, can easily be dismissed. I'm not listening to you, that's just your opinion. I'm gonna keep the opinions I got from my daddy and mummy when I was 5 years old, says every human being ever. As the Oracle says,
People don't logic their way into stupid positions. They stupid their way into stupid positions.
because that position is itself irrational, untrue, you can't have reached it through reason or logic.
There's only two options.
Right.
Where's the imagine people changing their no, you're not personality max. The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
You didn't reason yourself into. You got it through belief from childhood, from your family. So the second part is, once you've realized, oh, hang on a second, I never even reflected. Ousia. Ousia marks stages of learning and development, a higher kind of reflection on your thoughts and ideas. I've never thought about this idea that everything is all relative. This is the way the world is. Exactly. That's one of the sicknesses within our city. As we've been reading, this plays out within the family and the city. One of our societal pathologos is everything is all a matter of opinion. So hey, if the billionaire conservatives and religious and capitalists want to rape children, that's just their opinion, and if they think it's good, that's just a perspective, and all perspectives are the same, there is no truth, let them do it, says the establishment left. Says the people, who are not in the streets demanding a revolution from religion, capitalism, and conservatism. So it plays out within the city. That's right, yeah, we're told that. Hey, just let religious cults exist. Everyone's entitled to their own child abuse, to what creates wars and suffering and inequality and genocides. Surely religion has not done anything bad. I know a person who's good who was religious. That's right. Is it all relative? Is the name of that particular belief. And as the Oracle says,
People don't logic their way into stupid positions. They stupid their way into stupid positions.
we have to do two things, not just go through the reasoning that can wake you up through a new kind of reflection on a position and worldview you've never even questioned before. You have to implement it. You have to try and change your way of being, which will allow you to read these texts in a way that you haven't been able to before. You wouldn't probably even want to read them because that's just Socrates' perspective. Who cares? I like the perspective of my mummy and daddy, or my pastor, or my imam, or my rabbi, or Elon Musk, my CEO. See, belief is based on the authorities and ignorance of others. That's why you got to apply it. Has to be you. That's why the example I use of you being in a plane made it personally significant to you. What if you were in the plane and someone said, it's just a matter of perspective, let me fly the plane? So too, in your life, now that you've reasoned through that, this is the dialectic, by the way. Ideally, we would be in person so you could answer at every step of the way. Sometimes it's good to do it in groups, because that provides some stakes for you to be honest and not play stupid. People will make fun of you if you do. But now apply it. What's a personally significant, like you on the plane, goal for you in your life? I want to be a musician. I want to be an architect, I want to free myself from my problems. I want to have ideal relationships. Whatever it is for you, apply it. Now you'll find you'll get blocked because you didn't reason yourself into this position. You can't reason yourself out of it. Reasoning is a necessary step, but there's always two parts of our job: to learn the truth and find what you are carrying that's false, that blocks you from participating in the truth. Now what we've been reading is that block is called interpretation. I'm not going to listen, I'm going to interpret it as opinion. And therefore those blocks prevent our participation in, where is it in the book? Our spiritual journey, because it's also, you're changing your state of mind. It's a spiritual journey. Through stages of development, through different states of mind. There we are. But your beliefs that prevent your participation is based on a fear towards new understanding, new states of mind, and a freedom of yourself. Therefore, it prevents you from applying and integrating the Logos. So, you need to also do philosophical midwifery, which is the same terms of the dialectic, the same structure of the dialectic, but the other side of the dialectic. Just as we gave the example of using the dialectic to define justice, if it does exist, we also said, hang on a second, you've also got to look at what if it doesn't exist? The same thing applies for people. You learnt the truth about understanding, but you also have to address what you're carrying that says the opposite. Why do you believe everything is relative? Who told you that? What convinced you about that in the first place? Which is also a dialectic. Hey, you realized the conclusion when you realized you were blocked from applying your understanding, integrating it, and using it in your life to benefit. Therefore, you work backwards. Division. Interesting. Is it a repeating problem? Does it have divisions? Have I faced this kind of block before? Noticing a pattern. Okay, I've noticed it is not just a one-off problem, but a repeating problem. What's the demonstration? What was your state of mind when you were blocked? That's the beginning of the dialectic applied to remove your ignorance. You can't do one without the other. You could be talking to Socrates himself, and he could have done the best dialectic possible. It won't change your mind because you have to do it. It's your life. It's your reincarnation. It's your journey. You are the MC of your anime universe. All we're doing here is saying, hey Goku, this is how to use ki. Hey Naruto, this is taijutsu. Hey Luffy, this is the One Piece and how to use your devil fruit. But you've got to do it. The call to adventure. Can't do one without the other. You can't do Logos without surfacing your path of Logos. But interestingly enough, well, we've seen that the nature of human conflict is a movement from your limited idea of yourself, your negative state of mind, and your negative functioning through interpretation or belief, a blind, savage loyalty to that from your childhood, playing out with your family, and those people go on to get positions of power within the city. And there's also a similar thing playing out within the cosmos. Those three are a triad defined by pathologos, and your purpose is to develop the logos. But you have to do both. Perfect the logos and purify the pathologos. But what's fascinating is it's the same skill. There is one art to master. The single function or purpose for man, humans, which can unify our soul, putting us in a state of being of true justice, unified soul, always doing your proper function, and that's called the dialectic. Hope that helps. By the way, as you go along the way, Socrates says, that same block to your own participation in the Logos, even if you've just understood it, plays out within the city in that other people who are more integrated, unified, who are more able to participate in reason and understanding, are going to be more likely to trigger that same counter attack from other people. Just as you face the counter attack within yourself because of your pathologos loyalty, your belief loyalty, your family clan belief loyalty, so too, in the world, those who champion reason, understanding, empathy, benefit are going to trigger the worst human beings. The Trumpers, the Epsteiners, the capitalists, the religious, the most fundamental religious people are going to be triggered by those saying, fuck belief, understanding is necessary, and our purpose. So, judge me by my haters. We can therefore establish a series of hierarchical categories of human souls marked by, or psychological types, based on certain attitudes or states of mind that block a more full participation in the spiritual life. And what we've seen is the spiritual life is nothing other than mastering the dialectic, applying it to the Logos to know the truth of self, and applying that dialectic to freeing yourself from your problems. The pathologos idea of self. That's the spiritual life. The level to which you are blocked, we can make a list which would define the different psychological types leading up to the ideal. So these divisions mark the degree one can enter into the spiritual journey, a kind of hierarchical order. And the highest expression of the dialectic is dream analysis. It's the greatest dialectician we have access to. Reflecting our highest goal, by the way, the ultimate dialectician. So, our rise through those ranks of ignorance, defined by loyalty to our pathologos belief, into most full participation in the Logos, the self-Logos, defines human conflict, human struggle. The more we move up that, the more we can have an effect on mankind. But there is and always has been a fear among those in the lower divisions towards those in the higher, which we have to be aware of if we want to help people. Most are artfully, successfully. There's always been a fear in those in the lower divisions towards those in the higher, and most so towards the highest. And Socrates gives Jesus a grin and saying, well, neither of us can ignore that, given what we went through, wouldn't you say, pal? And he says, bet, homie. And they dap each other up.
Absolutely gooped.
I'm eating the testicles of this bull, and I'm eating it raw.
Calm down.
Making ice cream's a good and courageous thing.
Agreed, Emma. So, a war for humanity to survive and flourish is a war about what sort of state of mind will win. Playing itself within the family, the city, and the cosmos itself. You can wonder about, like, it's easier to see the family pathologos venerated through wealth, capitalism, power, politics, religious control, sorts of people who become the local pastor or the pope or bishop and stuff. The imam, the rabbi. It's not me who hates women, it's Jesus who hates women. Says Trump, says the billionaires, says the religious officials. So each of these states of mind have an image that attracts and repels others. The struggle underlies the structure of society. and also plays itself within each and every human soul. So if you want to help people, this is what you have to learn. So each of those in those lesser divisions who are not seeking truth and understanding use reasoning to justify the positions they already hold and to vindicate their actions. It's okay that Trump did those things because blah, 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 blah. It's okay that the billionaires get everything and we have to live on the street or not afford food or be in constant stress and struggle because blah, 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 blah. Because Elon Musk is Jesus. Because billionaires are better. Because trickle down, wealth, whatever. Garbage, but that's how humans function. Either attached to belief or following logos. So people will fight for those, they will defend furiously the system they're in when it's challenged because they perceive they will benefit. So the power holders, like the left-wingers, defend the status quo. And chief among them are the oligarchs or powerful moneyed interest. It's no coinkydink that those establishment left politicians who are supposed to be championing progression towards universal equality and universal principles, the logos, are actually defending the harmful status quo while also being millionaires themselves. Get that bag, Pelosi. Enjoy that position for another 50 years, Schumer. Just make sure Bernie Sanders doesn't actually say anything. And make sure AOC doesn't say anything at the Democratic convention. And make sure no one gets behind Mumdani. No, there's never any change. So these are most ancient truths. So everything that we've said in our conversation with our chatter today have always been true. Parmenides had the same conversation with Socrates at one time. And those who have been following the channel for any length of time have probably gone through this 1,000,000 times. It's only new to those who are still loyal to an interpretation of their old beliefs. Every interpretation is an attempt to preserve what you perceive to be some advantage. And what is new is often only new to those in whom their vision was blocked. So, when a new idea argues that its truth, number one, overcomes past privileges of the Epstein class, the struggle becomes a life and death issue. Yep. Trying to start World War III, setting up the concentration camps, setting up the ICE, KKK, Nazi, Gestapo police, fighting tooth and nail to defend their privilege to be stuck in their ignorance, which actually isn't a privilege at all. The possibility that a rational order is superior to all other claims forces a re-examination of our entire culture. Thank fuck, because capitalism is unsustainable and cruel and sadistic in principle. But hey, a lot of people have never thought about it. So hopefully everything that's been coming to light now, in time of recording, 2026, can force a re-examination of our entire culture. Just as this conversation may force a re-examination of your entire worldview. Why should I seek truth if there is no truth? Why should I change my beliefs if everything is just a matter of beliefs and perspective and interpretation? I'm always going to be a nice Jew my whole life. I'm going to be a nice Mormon my life. I'm going to be and go into marketing like my daddy my whole life. Why change? Well, now you're forced to. You're not forced to. You're invited to. Now, for some, it takes some stakes to wake up. Thus the example, what if you were on a plane? What if you were in the dentist chair? Would you say everything is a matter of opinion and allow that for your dentist as he pulls out a hammer? Or would you demand understanding of the truth of how to do dentistry, how to fly a plane, how to govern in politics, how to guide through spirituality. But of course, as tragic stories tell us, when you wait for the great disaster to befall you because you've refused to examine your life, ousia, develop understanding the dialectic, which is your purpose, maybe that disaster will come when it's too late for you to turn things around. That's the story of a tragic hero, or a Greek tragedy. Too late. Therefore, it requires courage and character to get into the game before it's too late. To look at your dreams before it's too late. To read these books we're reading before it's too late. To do midwifery before it's too late. To address your fear of mind. And behind that fear, behind this drama and clash of ideas is the fear of mind and freedom. Further, when it is tied to awakening a new kind of thinking, we know it will arouse the fear of the mind. That behind that fear is that new forms of order and understanding will demand a difficult retraining and adjustment. Yeah, it can be difficult, but also worth it. I want to be an NBA player. Well, it'll be difficult. I have to go to practice. Yeah, but worth it. The pull to oppose the new and resist change is a fundamental conservative impulse. That's conservatism. So people who are changing, who are defending the status quo and resisting a progression towards the logos of universal principles, universal healthcare, universal equality, universal income, universal wealth equality, universal education, etc., they are conservatives. Oh no, but Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer call themselves Democrats. They're not fucking Democrats. They're functioning to conserve the status quo because of their fear of change of understanding, states of mind, and freedoms of self, because they perceive they will personally benefit by these systems of inequality caused by a veneration of the particular sickness of the ruling people. Bitches. They're little conservative bitches. Right?
Die mad about it, bitch.
And we will die mad about it unless we do something about it.
That's anti-feminist in some way?
Calm your fucking tits.
All checks out.
Be a reasonable gooner.
Do a pog freaks.
They're freaks. So, as true today as it always is. Okay, so that's the nature of what it means to be conservative. I'm a Democrat, but I want things to be the same. No, you're not. You're a conservative. You're a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's one class of interpreter. Like Paul, as we've seen in the book, claims to speak for Jesus, presenting a new idea to the people. Hey, what's Jesus' new idea? Give up on religion and faith and belief. Develop your own understanding by understanding these parables through analogy to develop your state of mind, because the kingdom of heaven is a state of mind that I have experienced myself as divine luminosity, and you can too. And Paul says, oh, that's neat. What he actually means is the opposite. He means just to believe and don't understand, and it will kill you if you actually challenge that, because I'm a sick fuck, says Paul. And modern Christianity is based on Paul, not Jesus. Same thing with Socrates. Modern philosophy is based on opinions and not understanding. Philodoxia, not philosophy. So, if you're defending the status quo, opposing the development of dialectic and logos within society, you are a conservative. Looking forward to meaningful change is an opposite movement. That's the opposite. Yeah. Okay, the issue between these forces hinges on whether the proposal, so we have to make a proposal of why truth and understanding is better than harmful ignorance and conservatism. Benefits the growth and development of the soul. There's our standard. The old doesn't help, doesn't benefit the growth and development of the soul. Now, you have to also demonstrate there's only one way of doing it. Only one of them is true. But can't we kill a few Palestinians? No Palestinians. Can't we just enslave a few races? No enslavement. Can't we abuse a few children in Epstein? No Epstein Island. No, none, zero. But can't we compromise? No. There's a truth. And that one is true, and it also reflects a higher truth. As we showed in our conversation today, what we've been demonstrating on how to understand human conflicts within our soul and our world reflects the higher truth of the experience of mind knowing itself as knowledge. All of the terms that we pointed to, whole, part, same, different, same, other, beauty, justice, etc., are all principles that you can intellectually distinguish recognize within the experience of divine luminosity, the penultimate spiritual experience. That's the higher truth. They're non-physical principles because they have an existence as nouns non-physically. That's what it means to be objective. They have their own selfhood. Now, that's truth. The struggle over truth, in this struggle over truth, it becomes necessary to say which of these comes closest. So there's our answer to our friend saying, well, maybe Epstein called himself a Democrat. Nope. No, it's not Democrat. Conservative. Conserving the systems of oppression because they perceive they personally benefit. In opposition to truth, understanding, one truth that benefits souls by helping them grow and develop, not stay the same. No harm involved. No harm allowed. So, this is critical. In this struggle over truth, it becomes necessary to say which of these comes closest to revealing, no hiding, no lying allowed, and making intelligible, no belief, understandable, and knowable, the truth of these ideas being contested. Hey, let's show it. And you can see that it works. Where can one confirm what we have, and it's through this that we can confirm what we have explored through a process of A, reasoning through words, that's the dialectic, reasoning through words, artfully, properly, skillfully, and appealing to the kind of experience that comes along with an encounter with intelligence. That's the knowledge. That's what we've been doing today. We've been reasoning through words to show that there has to be universal principles. It isn't all just opinion, which can just dismiss growth and learning. We've shown how this idea that everything is just perspective or opinion blocks the growth and development of that person's soul and society and the human race through words. But we also appealed to that penultimate, that higher, non-physical spiritual experience of knowledge, or Sophia, wisdom, where the words we used for our reasoning through words exist. Beauty itself, justice itself, whole itself, part itself, same itself, different itself, the selfers. So there's the two things: reasoning through words or understanding, and appealing to our greatest experience, divine luminosity or knowing. Understanding and knowing, the two aspects of wisdom. Therefore, true philosophy. So just as we pointed out today, the conservatives are in the physical world. So if all of those pairs of terms, we could say whole and part, same and different. There's the higher whole and the lower part, also reflects reality. Self and other. Those that are only in the realm of otherness or division or conflict have their own model, ousia, knowing it all at once. I know Jesus is true. I know MAGA is true. And activity. What we just said is, hey, the overlap between self and other is mind. The model, the highest experience of mind, is knowing. Ousia, mind knowing itself completely in a non-physical dimension. The activity, all of those aspects of mind, whole, part, justice, beauty, goodness, benefit, we use in the dialectic or understanding. Therefore, understanding and knowing is the model and activity, together bringing forward wisdom, and we make use of both in the dialectic to show which is the truth. That's the struggle of mankind. The dialectic reasons through words or understanding, appeals to the greatest experience where they live objectively, knowably. That's the dialectic. That's how we win the war against ignorance. Ignorance is the conservatives, those who are bound by belief, the right wing, and the current left wing, those who reject mind. There is no principles. We should allow a fascist party. How many medical boards allow a group of doctors that want to murder all their patients? Fucking none. Why do we allow a right-wing party that wants to murder their people? Because we allow, oh, it's just a matter of opinion. Why do we allow beliefs that tell children that they're sinners? That they better do what they're told or else they get beaten, like they tell children, or they go to hell. The same shit that plays out on Epstein Island plays out in every fucking house through religion. Why do we allow it? Because we have a belief in our society that there is no truth, it's all opinion, everyone's entitled to their ignorance, and inflicting that on their children and on the world if they have power. Who the fuck cares? That's the left wing. Two kinds of ignorance. One creating the conditions for the other. The democratic soul, there is no truth, let's all vote. That gives rise to the oligarchs taking over all of the money and the power, giving rise to the tyranny, the tyrannic soul of belief. That's the fourth and fifth hypothesis of Parmenides. The two together is ignorance. Our purpose, therefore, is to move across this line. The lack of self, the lack of ousia, and the lack of logos, the lack of self, the lack of ousia or states of mind, and the lack of its functioning, that's the negative triad of the self. Crossing this line to where we have understanding or dialectic, that's our functioning. This greater state of mind of knowing, two together as wisdom, and allowing the two together to reach the higher stage, the self. There's our freedom, there's our mind, there's our understanding. It's a fear of those three that keep our savage stupidity and loyalty to our ignorance, where we spend our lives perpetuating and justifying our negative triad. Or the movement from the fourth to the third hypothesis is our purpose in life. Or life. So, pretty neat. I think it's neat. How are we for time? Okay, I'll go a little bit further. I've the last 3 episodes I was intending on reading further, but there's just so much content. It's so important to reflect on this section because, dude, it's the nature of all of the suffering we're experiencing. Capitalism, religion, conservatism, war, genocide, inequality. It's in these 3 pages. This book's a fucking banger.
She's a moron. She's a
Do a poggers.
This is nasty ass pizza. People can change for the better.
Right, and people can change for the better. And you don't have to eat a nasty ass pizza.
Be a reasonable gooner.
You can be a reasonable gooner, right?
If you don't know, now you know.
Now you know. Yeah, so how do we prove that one is the right one? Well, It benefits the growth and development of souls by definition and verifiably. One is true, the others are not. That truth also reflects a higher truth, as we just pointed to. We can make it intelligible, make it seen, understandable, graspable. Through reasoning through words, there's our dialectic understanding and appealing to the kind of experience that comes along with a direct encounter with intelligence itself. We don't ignore the greatest experience. Now, back in the old days, they did. What? You had an experience of consciousness? You're a hippie, says the people in the 40s and 30s or whatever. Back before psychedelics and internet and Westerners realizing that there are many, many spiritual traditions that actually are all based around having that experience. So, you're hysterical. No, you're not supposed to ignore your highest vision. You're supposed to understand and integrate it. You idiot.
Calm your fucking tits.
So calm your tits. So, there is our this middle section here, the self and other, or whole and part, or out of time and in time overlaps. Everything out of time, everything in time. So everything that we will experience in time, down here in our physical world of appearances, we can experience as a oneness out of time. That's how out of time, this circle, and in time come together to understand that experience of nous or knowing. That's why we have to appeal to that. It's the paradigm of everything. But as we use that reasoning through words and appealing to that experience to purify and solve those conflicts or problems or ignorance, perfect our experience of that, we can put the understanding together with that knowing and realize there has to be a cause of even that, which means a way of moving from wisdom to our ultimate goal, knowing the self. From the penultimate spiritual experience of luminosity to the ultimate, the knowing of the self. And that's where we are here in the text. So reasoning through words and appealing to the kind of experience that comes along with an encounter with intelligence, when reasoning brings with it a quietness of mind, that mind, and one can drop away everything to see what is seeing, it is then that sight opens itself up to itself, the self. Just as, equally, drowning yourself in the empty phrases like, it's just a matter of opinion, breeds chaos. Applying our understanding, the activity of mind, to our highest division of mind, this arrow here, brings a quietness of mind, freeing us to see the self that has been seeing those things, that has been observing and going through that development. Even in divine luminosity, there has to be something seeing it. In seeing the greatest sight to be seen, everything in time, out of time, at a oneness, all of the parts in the greatest whole, truth, the truth of justice, the truth of beauty, all of those selfers, all of those terms that we use through understanding, the activity of mind, the reasoning through words, all of these ideas, experienced as a oneness, that's the greater, having purified ourselves from that ignorance, the lesser, belief in materialism, everything is relative and there is a truth, it's trump, belief and ignorance. You can actually, using your understanding, these ideas in that dialectic structure, free yourself from the lesser, experience the greater. But if you apply this same skill of dialectic that you've been developing to that greatest experience, you can free yourself up to the ultimate. The ultimate beauty, the ultimate goodness, if all of these words are kinds of goodnesses, the good itself, if these lesser, greater, and ultimate are ways of understanding truth, false, true, and the truth and the principle of true, the true itself, if these things are what come together into a oneness, the one itself, the one self, the good self, or the true self, the ultimate, the self, there we have it here. Lesser, greater, and ultimate. Physical world of becoming, the eternal world of being, and the self that's watching even that. Giving us, therefore, our triad of self. The threesome of self we're after. Understanding, and together with knowing, with the freedom of self. The three things that we are trained to fear, that is the root cause of our loyalty to our ignorance, belief, and rejection of truth. So that's human ignorance. Defined, 2 terms. This is human wisdom. Defined, 2 terms. Ignorance is the distorted shadow of those 2 terms. There's our 2s. It's our fear of the true version or the greater that keeps us loyal to the lesser, our own suffering and ignorance, bringing with it that belief, limited idea of self, mind, and functioning. So loyal to our ignorant triad of self, preventing our development into the true triad of self, which contains 3rd hypothesis, understanding, the 2nd hypothesis, pure knowing. And if you apply one to the other, it can give a quietude of mind to realize what's actually experiencing mind, what's functioning through understanding. That's sight, seeing sight itself as self, which means the self that we've been after this whole time is something to do with sight itself. Not a seeing, not that which is seen, not even a functioning with that greatest seeing. Sight itself. What some might call attention itself. You can put your attention on your problems, ignorance, repeating the catchphrases of your society and family, or your clan group you've identified with, religious, political, capitalist, whatever. You can put that attention on what we do here to develop understanding. That creates the conditions for that experience of knowing, and you could put your sight on that. As the philosophers say, the idea if all of these terms of truth and understanding derive from this experience of knowing, then get into it a lot. And if it's the greatest possible experience, it will be the most challenging in how intense it is. Learn to endure it long enough so you can wiggle your toes. Stay in that luminosity experience for as long as you can so you can take a look around and perfect, see where everything comes from, including your own understanding. Stay in there long enough to wiggle your toes. It's a fear of that. Oh, that's the devil. That's Harry Potter. You're a, what are the Scientologists? What's their label for what is opposed to their belief? Not normie. Bad operator or something like that. You're a BO. You're a bad operator. I don't know. Every religious group or political group or capitalist group has a word that vilifies that which opposes their ignorant way of being. Heathen, whatever, socialist, woke. It's all garbage. It's all nonsense. It's the drowning oneself in empty phrases. Applying your understanding to see what's seeing. Hey, you can put your attention on your empty phrases to maintain your ignorance because of your fear of your own self and self-development. Fearing understanding, knowing, and freedom. Understanding mind and freedom of self. You can put your attention on what we do here, developing of understanding. And that prepares you to get into this experience and maintain that experience so you can wiggle your toes. You can have your attention on mind itself. But what if you realize, hang on a second, that's pretty neat, but even knowing everything all at once has to have a cause. Even mind has to have a cause. And if it's the greatest experience, there has to be someone experiencing it. That kind of understanding, reflecting on even that experience, can bring a quietude of mind, or quietness of mind, freeing your attention to attend to attention itself, or sight to see itself. That's what we've been after as the ousia of the higher. We've been looking at the ignorant version, the knowing all at once of ignorance, belief. I just know it's true because Jesus. We've been looking at what it means to know the truth. That's that profound and intense experience of divine luminosity, experienced as beauty itself and bliss. We've been wondering, what the heck is the higher kind of knowing of the self? If this is mind minding mind, or ousia, consciousness, turning around, which is ousia, on itself, which is ousia, ousiaing ousia, and in belief, I believe in the Bible. Why? Because the Bible tells me so. So you're believing to justify your beliefs, keeping you stuck in your beliefs, and all you're reflecting on is your beliefs, keeping you stupid. So that's the negative version. Knowing is mind minding mind. Sight seeing itself seems to be, from this banger of a book, what we've been after this whole time. Attention, attending to attention. Notice, if you can put your attention on ignorance, you can put your attention on understanding in the art we're here to do, dialectic. You can even put your attention on mind itself. Meaning you can have the worst and the best. Which means attention itself can't have those kinds of qualities. Otherwise it would get in the way for you experiencing the lesser and the greater. So the ultimate seems to be a kind of whole that has no parts, so it can experience the greatest whole of parts and experience the worst in our interpretive levels of development through ignorance. A kind of out of time, or a kind of at rest that's transcending motion, can have the greatest motion or can have the least motion. A kind of out of time that can experience everything in time or only the parts of time. And if ignorance is a distorted, belief-based shadow and copy of beauty, justice, and truth, and mind experiencing itself is the principle or paradigm, universal objective of beauty, justice, and truth, there is therefore a kind of even higher beauty, justice, and truth which transcends both. Sight seeing itself. Showing why it's necessary to go through this process, because if it's beyond qualities, you might not recognize it as beauty. If you think beauty is to do with symmetry of parts and order and flow, like a beautiful face, parts, harmony, flow, symmetry, and as I have a cause. Therefore, understanding is necessary. Which means if dreams give you both the experience and a little drama for you to apply the dialectic to develop understanding, dream analysis is the greatest possible spiritual, or the complete spiritual tradition, because it gives you both states of mind and understanding and can facilitate both this kind of state of mind and this transcendent one, but also presents it to you in a way that's appropriate to your stage of development, being right at the right time. That's your dream master. making it the highest application of philosophy, necessary, and the nature of the true spiritual method. So as we've been developing a hierarchical system of development based on how blocked you are from participating in Logos and the spiritual quest, we can put up at the top, hey, how well are you getting into your dream analysis? Because that seems to be the standard, the ideal, the archetype. Which Socrates and Jesus said right before saying we better make that list. Because when they were deciding, hey, we've got these new philosophers at the top, the new way of being, and all these other people are interpreters. So there's a degradation or a degeneration into ignorance based on interpretation. Because philosophy isn't about interpretation or belief, it's a practice as a way of life. And it's not what it's absolute fire being spoken. Oh, thanks, Isadori. I'm glad there's someone listening and appreciates it. Thanks. To you, I say...
Hey, you can't say that to her. You show her some respect.
I say show her some respect. Otherwise, she will say...
Kant would say some fucking bullshit.
Kant would say some bullshit, but we wouldn't.
Hubba. I just want more testosterone to human body ratio, and I'll finally be satisfied.
And your love of understanding has turned Emma from the majority report on. So it's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
So, philosophy, love of opinions, that's what happens when we leave it in the hands of the scholars. But the ideal is a living dialogue where we explore truth and reality. Which is actually interesting, a quick tangent. Because earlier in the text, okay, so Socrates and Jesus have been talking about what should you do in life. Here we go. Socrates says, look, there are two options. Should I say, I have come prepared to accept whatever happens to me as I go on my way through that hierarchy that we've been talking about of moving from different, most triggered by truth, worst interpreters, most ignorant, to a bit more open to truth, a little bit more, seeing some parts but not others, doing it sometimes but not all the times, Sneesius, doing even dream analysis, the highest, but being a bishop and not sharing it with others, scamming others in your day job, to the ultimate, always functioning through the dialectic, always participating in Logos and truth, always wondering about the self, to reach your true free state of self, your highest experience of mind, long enough to wiggle your toes, and function most providentially through understanding. As I go, should Socrates say that I have come prepared to accept whatever happens to me as I go on that journey, exploring ideas and seeking among my fellow men their way to justice and truth. Let's just explore ideas. Let's see, hey, are you interested in justice and truth? How do we get there? What have you found? How's it going for you? Where are you at and where are you stuck? Logos and pathologos. Oh, and if you're really keen, how is where you're at and where you're stuck being expressed in your dreams? Or, asks Socrates, should I say, I have come to save mankind through my own efforts and bring them to salvation. Notice, one is I am doing it, the other one is I'm inviting you to do it. One is I know everything and I have to be... No, definitely, just by the fact that we've been reading this stuff that other people don't, we're ahead of a lot of people. You know, there are some Stephen Currys out there. There are some Michael Jordans. There are some Usain Bolts that can run fast. So we're not pretending we're just the same. We're just the same as a fascist. But just as Socrates clearly knows he's done it, he's gotten to the end. But still, he's exploring. What kind of state of mind would that put you in? Curious? Is that necessary, given those who are higher up that list of development are more likely to trigger those who are lower, and the most triggering is the highest? But if he's exploring ideas and seeking their way to justice and truth, is that going to be a bit easier to deal with? Is it going to put Socrates in a better state of mind? Now, all the way through this dialogue, there have been times where Jesus has tried to take over leading the discussion, but Socrates casually and charmingly says, "Oh, that's great. I'm really great that you want to be the dialectician. But let me ask you this question first." Takes the leadership back. Just as within our soul, our pathologos will try and rule us, try and lead us. The fourth ox herding picture. The ox tries to drag you towards its old muddy haunts, its old problems, its old habits. But you have to capture the ox. You've got to fight for a while. So if you're having that counterattack from your old way of being, fearing the logos, how do you respond? Like Socrates? "Oh, that's interesting. You say that I suck and I shouldn't reach my goals. Interesting. Let me ask you, and I should give up. Okay, that's a possibility." Voice in my head. But let me ask you this question first. You sound a little bit like my mum or my father whenever I try to do a similar kind of a goal. Let me ask you this question first. Why was that believable? Or how has that played out through my life? Or wonder where mum learnt that. See? Gently taking the leadership role, not allowing the conservatives or establishment Democrats or capitalists or billionaire Epstein class or religious officials to rule the city, but for our soul. Oh, interesting. You have this idea. Let me ask you. Let's explore. So you saying that I suck. Is that true? What was your way to establishing that truth? By the way, putting myself down like that when I haven't even discovered the truth of myself yet, because once I reach the truth of self, that's the end of our spiritual journey as a human being, resulting in an evolution, says in the text, into a way of being beyond even humanity. So given that I don't know the self yet, otherwise I wouldn't be here, is it just to say that I do know myself and that I suck? I'll take whatever happens, but all I'm going to do is explore ideas in this dialectical way, being led by the logos and dialectic, ideally our dreams, finding out how we explore how we find our way to truth and justice. See? Different state of mind than our parents, than our clergy, than our politicians, than our capitalists who says, "I know the truth. It's trickle-down economics. We need all the money. I know the truth. It's Jesus, otherwise you go to hell. I know the truth. My house, my rules," says parents, who are the kings and clergy and capitalists of the household. You have to accept this, otherwise you can't be brought to salvation within the family. You're a woman, you must cover yourself, otherwise you can't survive. And Allah said so. There are lots of families like that, right? I have come prepared to accept whatever happens to me as I go on my way, exploring ideas, and as we've just been talking about how that happens, reasoning through words and appealing to our highest experience of intelligence. Exploring ideas in that way, called the dialectic, and seeking among my fellow men their way to truth and justice. Curious, questioning, wondering, fun.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder?
And Jesus takes a leaf out of Socrates' books and says something similar. Hang on, I wonder then, which is better for me to say, says Jesus. Shall I say, I have come prepared to suffer for the sins of man so they can receive heavenly salvation? Or suffering? Doing it for others? Forcing it on others? Or, shall I say, says Jesus, I am prepared to go through whatever happens, whatever is necessary, for the sake of those who are themselves striving for their own salvation. Very different. I've come to die for your suffering. I'm going to suffer and die. Human sacrifice. Very Epstein coded, right? Very capitalist. We have to murder these people to free them, says the conservatives. We have to enslave these poor people so we can raise GDP for the health of the society, says the capitalists. We have to torture and murder and have human sacrifice for the bad people to magic their way into goodness, says the religious people. The good question breaks the pattern. Yes. Yes. Should I do that? Says Jesus. Human sacrifice me, and then you never learn, you never change, but then you can just keep doing your old negative patterns, and by murdering, human sacrificing, magic your way into forgiveness and heaven? Or is it that, hey, whatever happens, I'm going to do whatever I can to help those who are genuinely striving for their own salvation? Now, Socrates says that's helpful. The first was a call to suffer for the sins of mankind, while the second is clearly only for those who are awake and themselves striving for their own salvation. Now, different attitude. To help those who are trying their best to help themselves. Now, Socrates adds the content. How do you help people who are awake to their purpose? Exploring ideas, the dialectic, helping guide them through those stages of interpretation to seeing. The same way, this whole series has been about moving from interpreting books, like we get taught in school, philodoxia. What's your opinion of Harry Potter? What does this book mean to you? No. Look at how much we reflected on each of these paragraphs of this book. How many times have we gone back to this section to see what's there without interpretation? To explore ideas and seeking among my fellow men their way to their own salvation, truth and justice through the dialectic. And as we've been seeing, there's that line. The dialectic is our method. As Socrates says, to use reason through words and appeal to our highest experience. Highest experience of mind, reasoning through words is the dialectic. That's the triad of self, leading to a realizing that even the attention that even attends to mind or understanding can be turned around and sight can see itself. That's the self. The dialectic. Purifying the pathologos idea of self and perfecting our logos. To know the self. So, having fun exploring ideas about truth and justice and how we get there with our fellow men who are genuinely open and curious. Artfully. Questions, breaking the pattern through questions. Interesting. Jesus leading the conversation. Our own pathologos leading the conversation. In society, the most ignorant, sick individuals seeking positions of power in belief-based groups that reflect their own family conflict. Interesting. Putin, Hitler, Musk, Pope, Imam, cult member leader, Scientologist. Interesting that you think you know and you have to. Interesting. Let me ask you this question. How do we reach truth? What's justice? What are the ideas of justice? How do we purify our false ones and perfect the true ones? How does our greatest experience relate to that? And how do we reason? Oh, what? I have to be Thetan level 8 to engage in? No. Let's put aside all this hierarchy, systems of oppression, and appeals to secret knowledge, and let's just reason through words together. If you're into it. Whatever happens, well, I can't do anything about that. All I can do is seek this kind of beneficial dialogue through ideas, through understanding how we reach truth and justice, which is the best we can do with our Usia and Logos. And it's the only thing that really benefits. If we seek to understand and benefit in the best way possible, what else can we do? We'll have to accept whatever comes our way, says Socrates and Jesus. Interesting. And as we perfect that process, using understanding, appealing to our highest encounters with intelligence, to find the truth of justice and beauty, goodness, truth, we can equally then say, hang on a second, what's the cause of those things that exist as a oneness? Is there a kind of truth beyond even mind? Is there a kind of good beyond even mind? Is there a kind of one beyond even oneness? Is there a principle of true giving rise to that experience of truth? Is there a principle of good giving rise to that highest experience and understanding of goodness? And is there an idea of one that gives rise to the experience and understanding of oneness? When reasoning brings with it a quietness of mind, and one can drop away everything to see what sees, it is then that sight opens itself up to itself, the self. Equally, drowning oneself in empty phrases breeds chaos. There's the nature of human conflict. Its end, its methodology, the state of mind one would have to be in, accepting what comes as we seek truth, seek understanding and benefit by exploring ideas, ideally through the dialectic with our fellow man, and our way to reach truth and justice. There's our way of being. That's what true philosophy is. Its opposite is empty phrases and chaos, philodoxia. Kant would say some fucking bullshit.
Gooner bait.
And for
This is
Gooner bait.
nasty. Wrong. You're die mad about it, but it's better to hum in the sink than to sink in the cum.
Okay, didn't get Kant, but we got something even better. Right?
I'm always good, and that is what I stand for. Being good all the time.
And so do we.
Debate dweeb.
And we don't want to be a debate dweeb, because that's drowning oneself in empty phrases and chaos. Soundboard. Right, so that's the nature of the conflict. That's the goal. That's our threesome of excellence. Intelligence, reasoning through words, and sight seeing itself as self. It's the fear of that triad that causes our loyalty to our ignorance, and our ignorance is that same triad, just in a distorted version, because we have loyalty to our upbringers.
People don't logic their way into stupid positions. They stupid their way into stupid positions.
Yeah, there's our goal. There's what it is. That's the nature of the conflict. That's the fear behind it. We can create, therefore, a list of development through the pathologos and interpretation to the non-interpretive state of being of self. The highest activity, therefore, is dream analysis, giving you yourself a standard. How often do you do dream analysis? It gives you an opportunity to practice the dialectic. It gives you an opportunity to practice what we're reading. It gives you an opportunity to surface clues for your pathologos and your logos, the nature of the conflict. It's your greatest guide. Therefore, your blocks to it is tips, evidence to work through to your fullest participation in dream analysis as the highest expression of the dialectic, to reach the highest state of self. So there's our standard or excellence. Oh, and by the way, Socrates goes on to say, not only is dream analysis putting you at the top of the list, ignoring the role of dreams knocks you down. Also, you got to be aware that you'll bring haters. Another way of judging how well you're doing is seeing what kind of opposition comes forward. Are you getting the right kind of haters? Because those in the lower divisions have a fear towards those in the higher, and most so towards the highest, as Socrates and Jesus both experienced. But he's also saying, hey, the new class, the highest class, the non-interpretive, the new philosophers, live the dialectic, explore truth and reality, as Socrates saying, taking what comes as they do. Lovers of that highest experience of intelligence, that's wisdom. The understanding and experience of that is wisdom, not opinion. So the modern scholars are philodoxias, not philosophers. Exploring dreams is the standard because it's also contemplation. It's the best kind of spiritual practice. But also writing your own new dialogues. That's because you get the higher states of mind, you reflect on it through dream analysis, perfecting your own dialectic skill in reading without interpretation, but also you're adding understanding to those experiences. You need both. The experience, and the understanding, You need the and the You need the and the But not only that, you get given those experiences and the most appropriate clues to get the understanding, most appropriate to level development. So it's the highest kind of spiritual meditation, whilst also perfecting your understanding. It's a win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
So there's your standard. Living it. Practicing the dialectic in your conversations, exploring truth and reality, doing dream analysis, which is also the highest spiritual method. What's better, dream analysis or waking life analysis? I think you might know the answer to that question, given that you just asked it when you did. What would you say? Now, if dream analysis doesn't just involve analyzing your dreams, but analyzing the dream master and dream analysis itself, you can take that question and carry it. That is a good quest. Because that will give you an avenue or a framework through through which you can explore dreams itself, putting you at the top of that list. Can you answer both? Go back to the dialectic. If dream analysis is better than waking life analysis, how could you give a definition for that? Demonstration, how would that function? How would that definition, that idea, that position function? As a result of that functioning division, how would that affect others? As a result of these living your life in this kind of a way, is there a key idea or theme that would come as a result of that life that you can synthesize into a key idea that you can bring back to that first definition, synthesis and analysis, to conclude? Having gone through that process of dialectical reflection on that idea, do you end up with a better definition of dream analysis? Now do the opposite. What if dream analysis wasn't better? Definition, demonstration. Notice you're practicing your dialectic, that's a win. You are gaining new insight, that's a win. You are doing sustained, systematic, focused use of attention on an idea that's transcendent. Formally, that's all of the tickets for meditation in an open, curious way, a state of mind. So you're doing meditation at the same time. You're learning about your dream master and the nature of reality. And the dream master might be the highest kind of state of self that we are moving into, if it's able to function from the knowing of self through the wisdom of intelligence and understanding, and knows all about our pathologos problems. So you are reflecting on your ideal. Whoops. I meant to press this.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
And by the way, having gone through it in this kind of a way, you'll surface all of the problems that block you from participating in this kind of non-interpretive reflection on the highest functioning of mankind, the ideal, giving you clues to do your midwifery on. So that's another win. But also, if you get there, you've got this handy dialectic in your back pocket. Then anyone you meet or anyone you care about who has dreams, which is everyone, you don't have to tell, hey, just believe me, dreams are important, more important than waking life maybe. Or dreams are not so important, you should do waking life, whatever your position ends up being. You can help them go through the steps of understanding, like Socrates, taking what comes as you explore with your fellow man, reasoning through words, appealing to our highest experiences and vision, exploring the nature of truth and reality. You are doing living dialogue because you've done it yourself. You made it. So you know the steps. It's a win-win. Which means you are living the dialogue, you're exploring the truth and reality, taking this question, applying the dialectic to answer it, referring to the text and your own experience of your work with dreams. You're also doing meditation, so you're a true lover of wisdom because you have those higher states of illumination as a result of that reflection and in your dreams as well. So you're moving from philodoxias, love of opinion, to true philosophy. You're exploring your dreams, and as we said, that's a win. You're contemplating. The dialectic is the meditation or contemplation. But because you've gone through it yourself, you can write your own dialogues. Not only have conversations with your friends over coffee, cheers.
If you don't know, now you know.
You can say to your friends, now you can know because... No, forget that. Not only are you having conversation with your friends and helping them through this reasoning that you've gone through yourself, you can write a story about it. You write a story about you and your mate Bill in a coffee shop and all of the funny things and fun things that happen as you lead him through this dialogue. And maybe have another character that comes in and gets triggered. Remember, the lowest are triggered by the better? And either of you could respond. Maybe he can respond, maybe you can respond. What does the waitress say when she sees this going on in the coffee shop? Which would actually put you above Socrates. Because we murdered him before he got a chance to write his dialogues. Socrates, I have heard there is a curious breed of seekers, who have not only been exploring dreams and contemplation, but they have even been writing new dialogues about Isidorian Bill and the crazy waitress, and Mad Joe that came in and got pissed. Taking off in a direction akin to ours, yet different in an interesting way. They're also revived Homer's philosophical midwifery and developed a method and practice to accompany that. As we said, as you go through your dialectical exploring of the logos of your question, you will have to address, there's two games, the pathologos idea of self, pathologos way of being, and the pathologos interpretation that come up to block you. Meaning your dialogue would probably also include that as well. A revision or a bringing back into life midwifery, which has to accompany that. I am curious about calling them a name for the new philosopher because it is not clear, at least not yet, where they are really going. So therefore, it's up to you. As Socrates says, I am willing to explore and take what may happen, take what comes my way, as I explore these ideas with people who are open to it. Hey, seeking understanding and seeking to use it with others to benefit, what else can we do? And Socrates is saying, I'm not going to give you a name yet. I'm going to point to the door. It's up to you to walk through it. So, he sees you, but it's your call. What a banger this book is. Thank you for the question from our chatter. Very relevant. Giving all of us an opportunity to reach that top. The non-interpretive, ideal, perhaps new philosopher, but we don't get the title yet until we're there. So it's up to us. But Socrates is in our corner. And what better kind of corner man do you want? Thank you for joining me. If you want to donate to the channel, that's appreciated. It's a link below. If you want a link to the text, that's below. If you want to join the Discord, Twitch, or YouTube, you can do that. And best of luck in the adventure. I hope to see you in the next one to explore the ideas that come up along the way. Love the cliffhanger. Yep. See you in the next one.